Guys, Pastor Larry here again today, and I'm talking to you today about Train Up a Child, part of the series that I've gotten started in. And I'm trying to record young couples and young families and young people who have been raised with this whole idea of speaking to God and allowing God to be the part of their life in training up their children and helping them make the job easier. Today I happen to be interviewing Dylan, who is Pastor Andy's son, and today, and in this at this time, he's in, I think, 20. And I want you to pay particular attention to this video because in it, you'll see the strength that comes to a young man when he's trained up to communicate with God from a very young age. Dylan was introduced to this whole concept from his dad when he was around 4 years old. And so Dylan really doesn't have too much concept of what life is like without calling on God. So I just want you to pay attention and listen to the strength that you'll hear and the courage and the confidence in this young man's life that is all a part of bringing God right into the middle of his life. I know you'll recognize that, so hope you enjoy the video. Stick with it. At the end of the video, I'll come back to you, and I want to share with you some of the things that I particularly noticed, and I hope you notice as well. Hi guys, this is Pastor Larry again, and this happens to be Dylan. This is Andy's son. Hi Dylan.
Hi Larry.
How are you today?
Good, and you?
I'm great, thank you. You were just a little tyke when this whole concept of talking to God came into your family. Mm-hmm. Do you remember approximately how old you were and what this whole thing seemed to do to you?
I was really young, probably about like 4 or 5, and the whole thing, I don't know, it didn't seem too outlandish in any way, shape, or form. It was just kind of we trudged on it with as a family kind of a thing, so.
Yeah.
It wasn't too.
So it seemed kind of normal to you then, huh?
Yep.
Cool, all right. So living in a house that talked to God at a 4 or 5 year old age seemed a-okay. Mm-hmm. And the reason I'm asking that question is because you're going to be talking to people who have little kids, 3, 4, 5, and they want to know how to bring this concept to the child so that the child can understand. How did you begin to talk to God and understand what was going on? You remember?
I think it was placed more in front of me as not more dealing with your issues, but more of like talking to a friend kind of a thing.
Yep.
Someone who more just cares about you, which is how it should be brought to a lot of people.
Sure.
And so I think instead of like I think the big thing was for me was it was more of just talking to a friend. That's kind of what my dad drove into my mind.
And do you remember the first time you really heard from God to where you knew God had spoken to you?
I don't remember it personally, but I remember the story of it. I was dealing with a friend who would get upset at me, and whenever he would, it would make me really crabby. And then I remember talking to God. I do remember talking to God about it. I don't remember the whole situation, but
sure.
He showed me something about Daniel's in the lion's den, and then I don't recall what feeling came from that, but then the Lord shared with me that it's his issue and not mine, and so that really did heal up that relationship with that person.
So you were just a little guy,
mm-hmm.
and God was, and see, here's the thing I'm trying to get people to understand. Children naturally hear from God.
Mm-hmm.
Dad didn't have to set you down and say, now Dylan, this is how you hear from God,
mm-hmm.
right? You just heard from God, didn't
mm-hmm.
you? Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. How did it benefit you growing up? Going through your teen years, how did it benefit you?
How did it benefit me?
Did it save your bacon anytime?
Yeah. There's a few times where it definitely saved me. It really helped me throughout the teen years to like be able to look around and not like necessarily try to be like other people, because I could see what they were doing was out of pain mostly.
Okay.
And I didn't necessarily need to search for any approval from any friends.
That's huge.
Yeah. Because I just had no need. I didn't have any want for their approval.
Sure.
But
When you're at peace, that need goes away, doesn't it? Isn't that cool?
And the friends that I gained from it, I mean, I know how to pick my friends in a sort of way by the way that they had their head on the most straight. And so that the relationships that I started with are the ones that really deep rooted.
Sure.
And yeah, just the talking to God whenever I got upset at someone or stuff like that. I'd come home flustered and my dad would have me talk to God about stuff. And then I could go back the next day and not have it be an issue at all, or stress that at like a presentation or like a test or something like that, I would talk to God about it and he would calm me down and in some ways even like help me study and recall when I was taking the test on stuff. I'd be like, Lord, please help me recall some of the stuff that I was studying.
I know God's helped me personally in that situation, taking tests. I hate tests.
Yeah.
But when God gives you peace, it's a breeze. It's a breeze. Do you know of any downside? Tell me anything in the teenage mind where there might have been a downside to this whole concept of talking to God.
I will say that there were times where I felt like people weren't necessarily like listening to me or like my feelings because of the fact that I would bring something up and they would just say, well, talk to God about it. Like it was almost like, in my teenage mind, it was a fact of they didn't care about me. They just kind of like brushed it off to talk to God.
Sure.
But it was the best thing for me. So I'd say that was probably the biggest downside was there was a few times where I felt like they just didn't care. People that
How'd you deal with that?
Well, I was very resilient to deal with that trigger for a long time because I felt like this is your issue, not mine, kind of a thing. But after I did deal with that, God kind of helped me realize that they do care and that's why they're telling you to talk to me. Because they can be a good ear. They can rise up against that person with you in anger, but that won't fix anything.
That doesn't fix a thing, does it? No, anger doesn't fix a thing.
No.
Now, when you had two sisters, you were the littlest one, and your sisters have both described you as the aggravation. I just thought I'd tell you that.
Okay.
And can you remember a time as the aggravation when God might have helped you and your sisters resolve an issue? I know it's kind of hard thinking back about details, but just in general, do you remember going to God for something like nobody here,
I remember a really big thing for us as kids was dishes, and a lot of...
You had to do dishes?
Well, it was who was going to do dishes.
That's what I mean. My goodness.
And so afterwards, we'd like start World War III in the kitchen on who was going to do it and like argue about who did it last week and this kind of stuff. And so we tried countless plans and stuff like, all right, this person's doing this today and this and that, but then it'd get all mumbled jumbled and then we'd start another fight. And so I recall a few times where it was Dad would come into the kitchen when we were all bickering and snickering at each other, and then he would tell us to deal with it and help us all individually deal with it, or else he'd call a family meeting, the dreaded family meetings, where we'd all come in here and sit, and then all go around the circle and talk to God about it, or have us all do it at once. They were good. They were just really annoying when you were mad.
At that age, they seem to be, when you're angry, I understand. So now, what's life like knowing you can communicate with God and grab His information that you need? What's it like for you now?
I find myself sometimes to a fault, like never worrying about things that are going to happen, kind of a thing.
Sure.
Because I know that along the way I'll ask Him what's up, what's going on, what I should do, and then He'll give me an answer and things will work out. And I mean, whatever is happening is going to be His plan for me, kind of a thing. And of course there's times where I step off the path and stuff like that, but then just kind of talk to Him about it and He'll push me back on. But even then, that's when it comes to a fault, is when I start walking off and then not worrying about what's going to happen. Then stuff starts happening. I'm just like, that's when now I know I have to check myself, kind of a thing. But
would you say it's improved your confidence in life? Makes life make sense, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Any comments you'd like to make to young people out there that's...
It's definitely, I mean, it's something that works. There's a lot of tried methods that aren't necessarily true, but I haven't found a fault in this one yet.
Works every time, doesn't it? You're not married. How old are you?
20.
20 years old. So when you begin to have your children, you're going to train them how to talk to God? You're going to have those dreaded family meetings?
Yep.
It worked out pretty good, didn't it?
Yep.
Well,
Yep.
you turned out to be quite a young man.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time, Dylan. All right, bye-bye. Well, did you pick up on what those strengths were that I talked about at the beginning of this video? Did you hear when Dylan said he's never really had too much of a need to seek people's approval in order to make people like him? Man, do you know how big that is? One of the biggest lies that most men, women, and children all believe from the very youngest ages is that, number one, they're not good enough. Number two, they've got to be something different so that the people that they're with will like them. What a big lie that we get trapped into. And if you listen and think about that, Dylan was saying that that's never been a part of his life. There's been confidence in Dylan's life throughout his whole life. I hope you recognize the confidence in a 20-year-old man. I don't know how old I became before I was totally confident. I think I was a whole lot older than 20, however. But I just hope you enjoyed this conversation with Dylan. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you picked up on some things. If it's raised any questions in your own mind or your own life, if it's raised questions, desires to begin to teach your children, train up your kids, and to really communicate with God right in the home, if it creates questions, please let me know. Why don't you give me a thumbs up on the video if you like it, give me a like if you like it, and if you would also subscribe to my channel. We're going to be playing a lot more. We're going to be doing a lot more of this, talking to people who have trained up their children, and even some of the children, like Dylan, who've been raised into this concept. See, this isn't something new. It may be new to your thinking right now, but it's not new. And it really we need to get Jesus in the middle of training up our children, because I'm telling you what, if you're working to train your child without calling God right into the middle of the situations of life, then I want to tell you, you're working way too hard, and God's got it much easier for you. So subscribe to my channel. Stay tuned. We're going to be bringing more to you in the near future. But I hope you enjoyed my communication with Dylan today. Hope you picked up on some things. God bless you. Let me know you're out there. Give me a text. Go out to my website, LarryLowe.com. There's plenty of books. There's plenty of material out there, free and otherwise, that will teach you and help you learn to live a life that is perfectly peaceful and balanced with God. God bless you. I'll see you next week on the next video. Bye-bye.